Good morning, St. Francis, and good morning, people of God. It is Friday, the 30th day of August, 2024, Friday of the 21st week of the year, the 21st week in Ordinary Time. And I'm here in our courtyard of our school, the Franciscan School, and there you can see our first graders going off into media, into our library. This morning, we've just completed morning prayer, and now it is time for classes to begin. And so our first graders, one of our first grade classes, get to go off to library to learn more and more things. Yes. And so everybody's there acknowledging me. Okay, sorry. But on this, it's kind of a sweltering day here at in North Carolina at the Franciscan School. It just continues to be humid and everything else like that. Hopefully, it will break early next week, I guess, or sometime next week. So we just got to endure a little bit more over this Labor Day weekend. We're heading into a holiday weekend, and so hopefully that will allow for a little bit more rest in the midst of this heat, and to avoid it as best we can. But on this Friday of the 21st week of the year, we continue with the first letter of Paul to the Corinthians, and here we have the great statement that Paul makes about the foolishness of God. Because again, in dealing with the people of the time, the Greeks and the Romans of that time, again, a God does not die. A God is incapable of dying because a God is eternal. And yet Jesus undergoes the passion of the cross and dies. And so what does this mean? Again, for them, it is foolishness. And again, because the whole understanding of the cross being a sign of defeat, a sign basically of the world having the victory over what it is that God intended to do in bringing Jesus into the world. And yet, all of that all of that is not true. It is not a sign of defeat. It is not a sign of the world's victory. And it is not foolishness. Again, this God who acts in ways that other gods and goddesses never could ever conceive. This God who acts in ways that are always victorious in the end, although they seem to be defeated, in the doing. A God who reverses things. A God who brings back from the dead. A God who understands the ups and downs of human life in such a way that no other deity, no other god or goddess ever could. And so again, this is what Paul preaches to the Corinthians, is that this kind of foolishness actually leads, to life. It leads to a future. It leads to an experience and a life with God that no other kind of life, ever can lead us to. And this is again what makes the difference in Paul's preaching. I think this is our kindergarten class now going off to someplace. They're going off to art. But this is what makes the difference for all of those who dare to believe. Again, that what seems to be foolish to the world is actually wisdom for God. What seems to be a defeat to the world is actually a victory for God. We live with that kind of understanding. We live in that kind of context as believers in this world, and we can't stop living like this because this is the way that we show the world, we manifest to the world that what we think are ends, what we think are defeats, what we think are disappointments and despair are nothing, but God basically continuing to be at work, are continuing to show us a way through these times and through these experiences that we encounter, that we live in, that bring us life, that bring us the hope that we need. In Matthew's Gospel today, we have the great parable, again, of the 10 bridesmaids. Again, sometimes they're called virgins, but they're the 10 bridesmaids. Again, 5 who are foolish and 5 who are wise. And again, the whole idea about keeping vigil and waiting for God and being prepared. We hear this at the end of the year during the year of Matthew. We're in the year of Mark now. In the year of Matthew, this is one of the last Gospels that we hear towards the end of our church year. But we hear it today, again, just as kind of a reminder of about what it means to be awake and prepared, what it means to be vigilant, what it means, to never lose sight of the fact of a God who is constantly coming to us. And even though that coming may be delayed, even though that coming may seem to be lost in time or lost, again, in history, this God is still coming, always coming. And we need to be prepared for when this God does come back to us, to be able to be received by him. Now, again, it kind of works, this parable works out in a way in which God seems to be very stingy, and kind of not very nice, and basically shutting out those who did not seem to be prepared. And again, that works against what God's design is, that all people be saved, that all creation be saved. But there is a seriousness, again, to making sure that we are prepared and waiting for this God to come and waiting for this God to be a part of our lives. And perhaps what we learn from from it is that where the wise bridesmaids couldn't offer any help to the foolish bridesmaids, so we must offer always help, maybe to those who are foolish among us, to make sure that they are prepared and their lives are open and ready to receive what it is that God has in store for us. A blessed day, St. Francis and people of God, from the Franciscan School. May the Lord give you his peace.